Oh yeah, it is time. Once again, it's Monday. You know what that means? Mock Draft Monday. Oh boy, we got a little less than 2 months until the 2021 NFL Draft. If you want to start engaging with me in draft conversation, make sure you follow me on Twitter and subscribe to this channel. Smash that subscribe button and do it now. So yeah, today we're here, updated mock draft. And I'm taking a swing for the fences today, baby. I created one. It's a one-rounder. All 32 picks in the description box below. But I wanted to roll out with a couple of trades and big trades with teams moving up the board to go get a quarterback and kind of see what that looks like and see how that would work and see if that makes sense and see if that's something that's potentially doable, feasible, reasonable, believable, and all of that jazz. So let's talk about it. The top 2 picks remain unchanged, although I wonder just how many teams won't have Trevor Lawrence as their QB1, but ultimately that may not matter too much because it doesn't matter if 32 teams have Trevor Lawrence as QB1 or not. The only thing that matters is, do the Jacksonville Jaguars have Trevor Lawrence as QB1? And it certainly seems likely that they do and that he's pretty close to a lock right now to be the number 1 overall pick. Certainly could still change, but it's the way it's seeming, at least at the moment. And as far as the Jets at number 2, I can't buy that they're going to build around Sam Darnold. And maybe they will. And maybe I'm wrong. Certainly possible. We all are wrong from time to time. More often than not, we're wrong. But it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And you tie yourself to a previous regime's drafted quarterback when you're picking number 2 overall in this year's draft in a class that seems to be pretty good at the quarterback position, where maybe you could sit there, pick up Darnold's 5th-year option and trade him away for picks, because you'll have teams that might be intrigued by the upside, might view him as a reclamation project, that might lose out in the offseason sweepstakes to acquire other big-name quarterbacks or to draft one of the big-name prospects here. I can't buy it. So I've got Wilson going to them at 2, and until we get significant intelligence or reports and rumors that indicate that they're not drafting a quarterback, I'm probably going to continue to have them drafting a quarterback there. Where it gets really interesting is number 3 with Miami. And I look at it this way. If Miami's not going to be able to trade for Deshaun Watson or, do something else, and they believe in Tua enough to where they want to give him another year, then to me, they should absolutely put that number 3 pick on the market. They need to be open for business. Get somebody to want to move up to their spot to take their guy, especially because a lot of people are probably going to assume that 4th pick with Atlanta is very likely going to be a quarterback if the right one's there. So it makes sense for somebody to jump up in front of them. And in this case, I've got Carolina, their divisional rival, jumping up ahead of them, going from 8 to 3, swapping picks with my spots with Miami, and in the process giving up number 8, number 39, which is their 2nd-round pick this year, and a 1st and 3rd-round pick in next year's draft. Maybe it'd just be a 1st-round pick. Either way, moving up 5 spots. What would that do for Miami? Allow them to continue to strengthen their position in terms of draft pick capital in this draft and in future drafts. And for the Carolina Panthers, it gives them what they really badly, desperately need. The whole signing of Teddy Bridgewater last year as a bridge quarterback was really odd when you think about it just from a standpoint of you had a new head coach coming in, Matt Rule. He had a long-term deal, which means you have the flexibility, the capability to really gut the thing and start over. There's no need to really panic, no need to absolutely try to win now type of mode. Like, take your time and build it right, do it the right way, and that starts with building around a young quarterback. And assuming Carolina can't make a trade for Deshaun Watson, then you would assume they're going to be pretty desperate for a quarterback. So that is certainly a trade that I could see being feasible and reasonable for both parties. For Carolina, it means that they can move up ahead of Atlanta, maybe cock block Atlanta. For Miami, it allows them to move back a little bit. They'll still be able to get somebody on the offensive side of the ball that could help them and help protect Tua and give Tua more options. Now here in this case, I've got him taking Rashawn Slater, the offensive tackle from Northwestern. Either way, you could go receiver or you could go offensive lineman. I don't think you go wrong either way. But it feels a lot better if you're Miami to draft one of those players at 8 and pick up a future first-round pick. To me, that's what they should be trying to do here. Which then brings me to the next big notable trade after I've got Atlanta missing out on the top 3 quarterbacks. I just can't right now mock quarterbacks going 1, 2, 3, 4. That doesn't seem feasible, reasonable, or realistic. But maybe they would take a guy like Pitts from Florida, and assuming he would actually play at tight end. Imagine him in an offense with Julio and Calvin Ridley. That Falcons offense is going to be really scary if they do that. And you did bring in a guy in Arthur Smith, who's an offensive coordinator from the Tennessee Titans. As much as you say, well, they need defensive help, and they certainly do, but when you look at where they're drafting at that point, it's got to be an offensive pick, because that's where the value is. That's where the talent is in this draft, especially at the top. So why not get the potential game-breaking tight end? And then Cincinnati at 5, going with Sewell, the left tackle from Oregon, because you need to protect Joe Burrow, and that's what that comes down to. Then you get to 6, and you get to where Philadelphia is, and there's all this thought of, Philadelphia has now dealt Carson Wentz. Are they truly 100% bought and sold on Jalen Hurts? If not, is this team potentially going to look at taking a quarterback in the first round? If I were the Eagles, I would certainly pump up the rumors and leak that stuff out there that they're intrigued and interested by at least multiple quarterbacks in this class. Because you want to open up your flexibility and open up your options here and potentially get a team to bite and want to trade up and make potentially a big move to go up to your spot and draft a quarterback, which is exactly what I've got happening here. Look, we talk about teams that want a quarterback. We talk about teams that are desperate for a quarterback. If the Chicago Bears get to day 1 of the draft, if not beforehand, but especially day 1 of the draft, and they have not acquired a big-name starting quarterback, then they have no choice. They have to go in the draft, and they have to basically be balls deep in at this point. And maybe going all the way from 20 to 3 is too much, because that either requires multiple moves up the board, which I'm not sure Ryan Pace could piece together, but more so just having willing trade partners, and that many willing trade partners could be a bit of a challenge. Now you get to 6, the Eagles could potentially be open to that, especially if you gave them enough, and you're talking about giving them 20 and 52, so a first and second this year, and a first and third next year, and maybe you could sweeten the pot. Maybe that's, a future second-round pick in 2023, something along those lines. The bottom line is, until the Bears get a quarterback, nothing freaking matters. Nothing. And if you're the Eagles, for a team that's really up against it in terms of the salary cap, I think this deal makes a tremendous amount of sense for them too, because they get to accumulate additional draft pick capital, which means they get multiple swings at the plate for potential high-impact players at a relatively cheap and reasonable team-controlled, team-friendly cap number for several years. Sure, you don't always want to be in the habit of trading out of a top 5 or top 10 pick, but if you're the Eagles, to me, it certainly makes sense to do that. And for the Bears, you've got to. You can't play around. You can't wait. You're doing that, you're taking an incredibly big and potentially unnecessary risk. You can't sit there at 20, because chances are one of these guys is going to be there. If they are, it's the wrong guy, and you don't want him any damn ways. So they go up to 6, and they take Trey Lance from North Dakota State. It could just as easily be a Mac Jones here, but I would think maybe they would gamble on the upside. But yeah, if the Bears get to draft day and they don't have that dude, they've got to make a big move to go get one, don't they? And that seems like a potentially logical place to do it. Now, certainly, if you took a risk and took a chance and you said, hey, we're going to wait and see what Detroit does at 7, and we're going to wait and see, what happens at 8, 9, 10. But if all of a sudden you look and you get to pick 10, let's say, pick 11 even, and you see that both Lance and Jones are on the board, then at that point in time, you want your choice of which one, then you got to go up and trade for him, and maybe it won't cost you as much. But either way, the name of the game has to be go get another quarterback. And then the other big trade here, it's not as big, but it's still notable, Washington football team. They can sit there and dance around it or potentially be afraid of it because they just burned a first-round pick 2 years ago in Dwayne Haskins, and he busted out for him. But the reality is they really need a franchise guy. They haven't had one, arguably, since Joe Theismann. RG3 was supposed to be the dude, but we know what happened there. Kirk Cousins kind of was the dude, but they never really bought into him as a franchise guy, so how much do you really classify him as a franchise guy? When I look at this and I say, if you're Washington, if a Mac Jones or Trey Lance, if either one of them starts to get around pick 13, 14, right before New England, you're probably going to have to pounce. And yeah, that might mean you have to give up a second-round pick to do it. If that's what it takes, then you do it and you go get your quarterback. Because you're in a division that you won this past year. You're in a division where you won, where you had all types of turmoil at the quarterback position. The other three teams in that division have some type of young quarterback in the fold. You could talk about questions about him or anything like that. Dak with the injury. Jalen Hurts, whether or not he's truly got that level of talent. And Danny Dimes as to whether or not he's any damn good or not. But the reality is all of them have invested in the past few years on young quarterbacks. You know, Washington needs to do that because they can potentially position themselves very well for the next several years by getting a productive starting quarterback on that team-friendly rookie contract. It's not a decision. Like if one of those guys starts dropping to 13, 14, or two of them, then you've got to make that move. Do not take a chance. Do not gamble. Because they get too far and you think, hey, we're Washington. I'm just going to sit back at 19 and see one of these quarterbacks falls to us. And then all of a sudden you see Pittsburgh leapfrog you from 24. Or New Orleans leapfrogs you from 28. You know, you could even talk about potentially a team like Atlanta coming back out of the second round and leapfrogging you. You know, any number of things can happen. Like at some point in time, you got to sit there and you just got to go balls to the walls and go get them if you think they're that dude. Especially because you're talking about a quarterback here. It's quarterback or bust. You either have one or you don't, period. So, how likely are these scenarios? I thought, like, I was trying to piece together, like, you can come up with any type of crazy things. I'm like, but some of these make sense. If Carolina was going to trade up, they're going to trade up ahead of Atlanta for a myriad of reasons. If Miami was going to trade back, like, it makes sense to move back to Carolina because you still get some nice draft pick capital in return, but you're not losing your spot too much. The Bears deal, like, if they don't have a quarterback, like anything is possible because desperate leads to dumb, but desperate leads to we will drop our pants and give you anything to move up into that spot. So that'll make other teams such as Philly or maybe others, could even be a Cincinnati, for example, could be very, very open for business indeed. And then looking at Washington, like I said, you can talk about different positions, but they got to get a quarterback. And if one of them's there as they're approaching 15, like you got to trade up and go get that guy if you're able to trade up. You got to go do it. And it might mean you have to sweeten the pot more than you should have to based off the old Jimmy Johnson trade value chart in order to make sure that you get that guy. So make sure, again, I'll put the details for the trades, the three that I have proposed in this mock draft, all 32 picks of round one of this mock draft in the description box. Let me know what you think. All right, I'm out.